So you're wanting to get into triathlon? Here are some of the things that you're gonna need to get before even doing your first triathlon. From the swim, to the bike, to the run, we're gonna cover all the gear that you need to do your first one. Get ready to pull out your wallet and drop your entire life savings into it. So we're gonna cover the first piece of gear here, and that's a triathlon suit. Now, they're great because for one thing, they're comfortable, and you can use them almost as a swim skin, so you don't need to buy a swim skin, which can be expensive as we get into the swim products later. But this is your first essential piece of gear that I would suggest getting, and along with that would come the watch. So you don't need a fancy watch such as a Garmin. You could just use your Apple Watch, or you don't even need to use a watch to train for your first ever triathlon, but I'd highly suggest it. And a very budget-friendly triathlon watch would be a Wahoo watch. It is the rival, and it's currently $99 on Wahoo's website, but budget-friendly, and it's a great device, and I usually use it. It's my backup device for my Garmin. So now we're gonna go over the swim portion of the triathlon and the gear that you're gonna need for that. So a nice pair of goggles is gonna suit you very well for this thing. Whether you could get a pair of tinted goggles like I have right here, or a pair of clear goggles, because most triathlons are gonna take part just before sunrise. So having the option to change between them so you can actually see more clearly when trying to spot the buoys is a great option. Now, depending on the time of year that your triathlon is, you may need one other important piece of equipment, and that is a wetsuit. So this is gonna be your wetsuit. This is probably the closest thing that you'll get to looking and feeling like a superhero in the water. Now, why this thing is important? It's because if you are doing a triathlon in a colder area of the world and the water temperature permits it, you can wear a wetsuit. Now, the second thing, apart from it keeping you warmer, is also that it helps you float, and as triathletes, most of us aren't great swimmers. So for people that are getting into triathlon, this is a great thing to purchase. These do run quite expensive, and they can go all the way up to $1,200, or they could be as cheap as $250, even though that is still a substantial amount for a sport. We haven't even gotten into the most expensive part of that, which is going to be the bike. So next, we're going to talk about the bike. So now, we're going to talk about the bike. So this is a triathlon bike, specifically a time trial bike. Now, this type of bike is very specific towards triathlon, as it is more aerodynamic than your everyday bike, as well as the armrests that you use to be in an aero position. Now, you can do a triathlon on any type of bike, whether it be a mountain bike, a beach cruiser, or any little road bike that you have laying around. You don't need to go out and spend as much as, well, when we're talking about bikes, you don't need to go out and spend $6,000 on a bike, which can be absurd to most people, but this is the only sport I do right now, and you do pay to go fast, but only up until a certain point. These things are fast, but they're only fast if you put in the time and get the fitness that you gain from training out of it. Now, a nice little add-on for the bike, if you're looking to have an add-on, is something such as a bike computer. Now, looking for something such as an add-on that you can have for a bike, this would be something such as a bike computer. This is used quite frequently, but it is not necessary, as you can use the watch functions to track your bike leg in a triathlon. Now, when competing, you do want to have something for storage for a spare tire, CO2 cartridge, or a little pump in case you do get a flat, because if you are doing a 70.3 or a half Ironman and you get a flat, you'll want something so you can actually finish that race and it's not a waste of your day, or letting all that training go to waste that you worked so hard for. So we have one piece of gear that's gonna make you look even more ridiculous, or even cooler, it depends how you see it, and that's gonna be the aero helmet. So this is an aero helmet. from what you can tell. It's more aerodynamic. Now, these aren't necessarily necessary for the triathlon, but when doing triathlon, a lot of people do buy speed, and this is one area that you can buy free speed. This thing will allow you to go faster. Now this is great because you can buy it, and it's basically, you don't have to work for the speed that you need to gain. This is probably one of the coolest pieces of gear, but also some people may think it's the lamest piece of gear as it makes you look like an astronaut. When it comes to the bike leg, we have one more piece of gear that is optional for your first triathlon, but if you're looking to do it for a longer time, I would say this is a necessary piece of equipment. So the one thing that I'm talking about are cycling shoes or cycling cleats. Now these are great. They are clip-in, so they do take a while to get used to. You're guaranteed to fall at least once when trying to learn these. They're not easy. You do have to kick your heel out to clip out of them, and clipping in can sometimes be just as difficult. But over the longer distances, this is very helpful and also allows you to go faster for longer, as well as transitions can be faster as you just take your foot out of them and leave them clipped into your pedal as you're transitioning into the next part of the triathlon, which is going to be the run. Now for the run, you're going to want some nice shades and as well as a hat. The reason why you want some shades and a hat is to help with keeping the sun off your face if you're out there for long hours, such as in a half Ironman, or if you're going to do a full Ironman or just a little sprint, it helps. Now, the hat may not be necessary for some, but the glasses, I would say, are a must, as you can hide your tears in triathlon, as well as they make you look cool, and if you make you look cool, you're gonna go faster. Now, the second thing you need for a run is the shoes, which is the shoes you've been training in for the whole time leading up to your triathlon that you've been doing, such as these, which are my long run shoes personally. These are the On Cloud Monster 2s, great shoes. Or you could be a little bit fancier, and if you're trying to go faster, or this is not your first triathlon, you could upgrade to a pair of carbon plated shoes. Now when talking about carbon shoes, once again, you're paying for speed. These are the Nike Vaporflies. These are the old model, but they still do the work for you. Now, in my opinion, when you're buying shoes this expensive, they might as well be doing the running for you. But sadly, we do still have to train. Now, we're gonna get into some non-essentials that you don't need, but are cool. So another piece of equipment, it's right here on my back. You don't necessarily need this, but this is nice when you're trying to take all your gear from your vehicle to the transition zone. So your helmet can fit up here. There's a little pouch in the bottom here for your wetsuit, as well as you can fit your wetsuit in the main compartment. You can put your nutrition in there. You can put your bike cleats in there, a towel, and all your didgeridoos. So another piece would be aero calf sleeves. Now, there's gonna be a lot of criticism on these just because you only really need them for the higher speeds that you're going, but they also have not been 100% tested to make you go faster. They work for some people, they do not work for others. It really just depends on your biking position, but that is way too in-depth for this video, so we're not gonna cover that. Now, another little extra piece of gear that you may want, but you don't need, because as triathletes, we do love our gear. And the more you get into it, the more you'll spend. So going back to the bike here, you can get yourself a pair of power pedals. Now, power pedals are great because just like your running pace, when you're running and you see that you're doing a 7 minute per mile, this gauges your effort based on a metric that we use in triathlon called watts. So this basically allows you to pedal at a certain rate so you don't overcook yourself during the race, and you can monitor it. Some people don't like racing with them, some people do. It's all up to preference. You do not need them. During racing, I don't personally use them, but I do look at the data afterwards so I can see what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong. And lastly, the most important thing you can do for your first triathlon, whether it's a sprint or more importantly, the longer it gets, the more important this thing gets. And that's in the form of gels or carbs, electrolytes, nutrition. When we're talking about nutrition for a triathlon, it is by far the most important thing you can do that will make or break your day, especially the longer the event gets. Now, when we're talking about it, we're talking about these. These are gels, and they give you carbohydrates, which your body uses for, okay, we're not gonna go into the glycolysis and all the scientific stuff, but it's important, so you need it. This is a caffeinated one, so if you need a little extra rocket fuel towards the end of a bike ride, to start your run, you take yourself a caffeinated gel. This is just a regular gel, same thing as the other one, except not caffeinated, 40 grams of carbs. It's great. Now, this is something I use every day when it comes to even, not every day, this is something that I use during bigger or longer training sessions that tend to extend over an hour and a half, and that's gonna be my carbohydrate mix. Now, this is great for even race day fuel. As you mix it up, put it in your bottles and put it on your bike so that you can replace those carbohydrates that you are using to fuel your bike. And lastly, but most importantly, it's the same thing as the first one, and that's a gel. It's just a different type of gel. This gel is 90 grams of carbs, so it's a super daddy of gels, but it allows you to carry around one big gel instead of carrying around a ton of little gels. And then lastly, instead of all these carbs, the second most important thing that you need during these rides or during these races are electrolytes. Now, these electrolytes are specifically for your sodium, because as you sweat, some people sweat more than others, some people sweat less, but you do need to replenish those sodium losses that you are losing during those races. The thing that I use is Precision Hydration. I'm a heavy sweater, so I use the 1500. Lastly, the thing that I use almost every day, whether it's my long runs, my long bike rides, or even just some of my shorter efforts, it's Tailwind. Now, this stuff has 25 grams of carbs and 300 milligrams of sodium per scoop, so this doubles as an electrolyte and carb source for your biking and training efforts, but also for your racing efforts. So when it comes to nutrition, do not sleep on it, or you will be sleeping in your next triathlon. Now, when you come to the end of this video, you're probably thinking, dang, triathletes, they're gear hoarders. Yeah, you're right. We do love our gear, but we do love our sport as well. Now, go out and tackle that first triathlon that you want to do. Now, if you like this video, go ahead and hit that subscription button down below, as well as that like button, and comment down below what triathlon you're training for. I'll catch you in the next video.